Why was everyone staring at her like she'd already failed? The California sun pressed down on the obstacle course at Marine Corps Base Pendleton, turning the sand into a white-hot mirror that swallowed sound and patience alike. Recruits shifted uneasily at the starting line, sweat running into their collars, boots crunching over gravel. Every pair of eyes seemed to find the smallest figure among them, the one standing a half step behind the line, hands still, gaze steady, refusing to blink. Kira Ashford. A name nobody knew, a face that carried no story, no reputation, just quiet. And in the military, silence was often mistaken for weakness. Staff Sergeant Vance Holloway paced behind the line like a circling hawk. His voice cracked the still air. You see that first wall, 8 feet of reality check. Some of you'll fly over it, some will struggle, and some of you. He stopped mid-stride. His eyes landed squarely on her. Shouldn't be here at all. Laughter rippled down the line. Boots scuffed the dirt. Kira didn't flinch. 3 recruits over. Corporal Brendan Cross grinned, perfect jawline, perfect record, the poster boy for everything the Marines wanted. He leaned toward the recruit next to him, not even lowering his voice. $20 says she doesn't make it past the second obstacle. The laughter grew. Someone whistled. Kira kept her gaze forward, breathing steady, shoulders relaxed. Let them talk. Attention was a currency, and she'd learned long ago that sometimes the best thing to do was stay bankrupt. Behind her eyes the memory flickered. Mountain air so thin it burned her lungs, the echo of a rifle shot across endless stone. A voice, deep, calm, patient, whispering corrections close enough that she'd felt the warmth of his breath. Not yet, he'd said, not until it matters. Move out, Holloway barked. The line surged forward, boots thundered against sand. Kira ran shorter strides, slower pace, deliberate. The first wall loomed ahead, all heat and shadow. She gripped the rough wood and hesitated, fingers slipping slightly from sweat. One recruit vaulted over beside her with the ease of a gymnast. Another climbed and dropped without breaking rhythm. Come on, Ashford, Holloway shouted. My grandmother moves faster and she's been dead 5 years. More laughter. Kira pulled herself up, every muscle in her arms shaking as she crested the wall and dropped down awkwardly. Her landing sent a puff of sand into the air. She didn't look back, didn't answer. The next obstacle, rope climb. 30 feet of coarse hemp twisting in the coastal wind. Cross reached it first, climbing with showy precision, ringing the bell at the top like a medal ceremony. He descended with perfect form, smirk already waiting. Your turn, princess, he said as she approached. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly. Kira gripped the rope. Her hands were slightly off position, wrong on purpose. She began to climb. The rope swayed. Her legs slipped once, twice. Halfway up, her muscles trembled visibly. The shouts below grew louder. Either move or drop, Holloway barked. She paused, then descended too fast, hit the ground, stumbled, caught herself. Silence fell over the group for a heartbeat, then came the laughter again, sharp, easy, cruel. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, clipboard in hand, watched from the sideline. His face didn't move. He made a mark, looked away. That's enough, Holloway said, disgust dripping from his voice. Ashford, fall out, the rest of you continue. She stepped aside, head down, posture defeated. The laughter followed her like flies. Good, she thought. Let them think I don't belong. Let them underestimate me. Because when the moment came, when everything depended on calm hands and a steady breath, none of them would see her coming. Just like the ghost had said. Hide in plain sight until the shot is all that matters. By mid-morning, the course was empty. Only heat shimmered above the sand, the air thick with the metallic scent of sweat. The rifle range sat on the far edge of the base, fog rolling in from the Pacific like a living thing. Kira arrived early, long before anyone else. She stood alone, eyes scanning the distant targets through the mist. She was measuring, calculating, remembering. A door creaked. Chief Warrant Officer Dale Kowalski stepped out, his face weathered by decades of sun and gunpowder. He nodded once at her, wordless. She nodded back. When the others arrived, Cross led them, the noise returning like a tide. He spotted Kira immediately. "Oh, good. Entertainment. Already here," he said, voice echoing off the berm. "Who wants to bet she holds the rifle backward?" More laughter. Holloway's truck rolled in, dust swirling around its tires. "Listen up," he barked. "Today we qualify on the M4. This is not complicated. You aim, you breathe, you squeeze. Even the simplest among you should manage that." He turned, eyes locking on Kira. Should being the key word. Rifles were distributed. When Kowalski handed her one, his fingers brushed the stock and paused. His gaze lingered on her grip, too sharp for a casual glance. "Make sure your cheek weld is solid," he said quietly. "That's where most people lose their accuracy." "Yes, sir." But when she raised the rifle, her posture looked wrong again, deliberate imperfection. She fumbled the magazine, almost dropped it. Cross sighed dramatically. "Jesus, someone's gonna get killed with her on the line." Holloway made his rounds, correcting postures, adjusting elbows. When he reached her, his sigh could have been heard across the base. "Your stance is wrong. Your grip's wrong. Your sight alignment's probably wrong. I don't know who approved your recruitment, but they did both of us a disservice." "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "Commence firing." The range erupted. Brass clinked. Gunfire cracked in disciplined bursts. Kira fired slow, deliberate, each shot intentionally off by a margin too small to seem suspicious, too large to pass. One round hit dirt. One clipped a target edge. None came close to center mass. Cross finished first, all tight groups, perfect control. He grinned, stretching like a cat. "Beautiful," he muttered loud enough for all to hear. "Cease fire." Kowalski walked the line with his clipboard, scoring targets. "Cross expert." "Ray's sharpshooter." Ashford, he hesitated, did not qualify. Laughter again. Holloway rubbed his temples. "I swear I've seen blind men shoot better." Kira kept her face blank, setting her rifle down carefully. Her hands trembled slightly, real effort, not fear. Every instinct screamed to show them the truth, to let the training take over, to silence them with one perfect shot. But the ghost's voice cut through the noise. "Patience is the sniper's greatest weapon. Anyone can take a shot. The dangerous ones know when not to." So she said nothing. When the others left, Kowalski lingered. "I've scored targets for 23 years, he said, not looking at her. "I've seen naturals, tryhards, and hopeless cases, but I've never seen anyone miss the same way twice while pretending it's random." He turned. "Whatever game you're playing, you'd better know the rules. It's going to get harder before anyone lets you prove otherwise." Kira nodded once quietly. As she walked off the range, her thoughts were calm, cold, clear. She calculated how long she could maintain the act, how much abuse she could take before it drew blood. Somewhere out there, something was coming, a situation that would demand the kind of precision no one else on this base could deliver. And when it came, they'd learn exactly who Kira Ashford was. Night fell heavy over the barracks. The air conditioning hummed like a tired machine. A symphony of snores, shifting sheets, and half-mumbled dreams filled the room. Kira lay on her back, eyes open, mind quiet. The ceiling above her seemed endless, like the sky she used to shoot beneath. A whisper broke the silence. "Tomorrow morning, 0:30, her pack, her boots, everything." Cross's voice. Laughter muffled, then quiet again. She didn't move, didn't even breathe differently. "Information is ammunition," the ghost had told her. "You never show what you've loaded." When Reveille screamed at dawn, she swung her legs from the bunk and immediately felt it, the squish. Her boots were soaked. Water poured out as she lifted one, splashing onto the concrete floor. Her pack was tangled with knotted zippers, her gear scattered. No one said a word, no one offered help. Lucia Reyes looked once, then away, guilt flickering and vanishing just as quickly. Kira untied the knots one by one, methodical, unhurried. She pulled on her soaked boots and stepped into formation, the squelch of water loud in the quiet morning. Holloway checked his watch. Late again, Ashford, right up number 3. Cross stood at attention, a halo of innocence hiding a smirk. The run that morning was brutal, wet socks cutting blisters, heat stabbing through every muscle. But Kira kept pace, silent, steady. She'd run farther with blood in her boots before. The day's lesson, land navigation. Teams of 4, maps, compasses, checkpoints. Cross, you're with Daniels and Reyes, Holloway said. Then, almost lazily, Ashford, Martinez, and Webb. Private Martinez groaned. Staff Sergeant, do we really have to? Did I stutter? No, Staff Sergeant. They moved out. Martinez ignored her from the start. Webb followed his lead. They treated her like empty air, like she was just weight on their mission log. They reached a junction, 2 paths. This way, Martinez said, pointing left. Skip checkpoint 4 too far out, we'll still pass. Kira studied the map. Checkpoint 4's 800 meters north, 15 minutes max. Martinez turned, scowling. Oh, she speaks. Listen, Ashford, nobody asked you. You're dead weight, you understand. You're only here because somebody checked a box. She stared at him, silent. The mountains in her memory rose like ghosts, the wind, the voice, the patience. Pick your battles, save your strength. The real fight is always later. She nodded and fell back. When they returned to base, their score was mediocre, exactly as she'd predicted. Barely adequate, Holloway muttered. Dismissed. As the others left, she caught Kowalski's gaze from across the field. He gave a subtle nod, recognition, or maybe warning. That night she found her bed short-sheeted, her pillows stuffed with pine cones, the lock on her locker glued shut. She sat, removed each pinecone one by one, rebuilt her bed and said nothing. The barracks buzzed with laughter and stories. She was invisible again. In the mountains, the ghost had once asked her why she kept pushing when her hands bled and her legs gave out. Because when the moment comes, he'd said, you'll be the only one who can do what needs to be done, and everyone who doubted you will have no choice but to see the truth. Kira lay down, her body sore, her spirit unbroken. Let them mock, she thought, let them push, the moment is coming. And when it did, the whole base would remember the day they laughed at the girl who could shoot the wind itself. Why did the commander show up to training field that morning? No one ever said his name out loud at first. They just stopped talking, straightened their uniforms, and pretended not to look. But when the unmarked sedan pulled up, dust trailing behind it like a drawn-out breath, everyone on the field already knew who it was. Commander Pierce Nathanson. A man whispered about in every unit, decades in service, fought in every major conflict since the Gulf. Silver hair, eyes that cut through excuses like glass. When he appeared, even Staff Sergeant Holloway, the loudest man on base, went quiet. He stepped out, hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the training grounds with the slow precision of a man who'd already seen too much. The platoon froze. Every recruit straightened their spine. Cross wiped his palms on his trousers. Holloway snapped to parade rest so sharply his collar snapped. Kira stood at the far edge of the formation, the sun a halo around her still figure. She didn't know why the commander was here, but she felt something shift, like the first cold wind before a storm. Continue training, Holloway barked, voice half a tone too loud. The obstacle course began again, bodies moving, grunts echoing off the sand. Cross vaulted walls like it was a show for cameras. Martinez shouted encouragements loud enough for the commander to hear. Everyone suddenly remembered perfect form. Kira ran when told, climbed when ordered, failed when expected. Halfway through the course, she reached the rope climb, her usual nemesis. She gripped the course hemp, pulled, slipped once, twice, and fell hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Holloway's sigh cut across the field like a blade. "Of course," he muttered. The commander said nothing. He watched her longer than necessary, then turned and continued down the line. His eyes lingered on others too, Cross, Martinez, Lucia, but when they swept back to Kira, something in his expression changed. A flicker, a memory, then it was gone. By the time the platoon moved on to hand-to-hand drills, the tension was thick enough to taste. Pairs squared off under Holloway's supervision. Dust rose, gloves snapped. Cross threw his partner into the mat with a thud, looking up to see if the commander had noticed. He had. When Kira's name was called, Holloway's smirk returned. "Ashford, you're with Webb." Not the officer, the tall, awkward Texan recruit. Webb looked like he'd been asked to spar with a glass vase. Ma'am," he said under his breath. "I'll go easy." She didn't respond. "Begin." Webb jabbed slow, hesitant. Kira blocked late, too late. Her movements looked sloppy, weak. The watching recruits chuckled. Some turned away, bored. But Commander Nathanson didn't. He moved closer, hands still clasped behind him, studying her. Not her punches, her stance, her weight distribution, the way her feet angled, the way she absorbed impact even when pretending to lose balance. There was something familiar in it. When Webb attempted a takedown, Kira went down easily. The mat thudded. Webb flinched, extending a hand. She took it, eyes downcast, every inch the picture of defeat. "Enough," Holloway snapped. "As you can see, sir, we've got a wide range of capabilities in this cycle." Nathanson nodded once, expression unreadable. "Indeed." He turned to Holloway. "Staff Sergeant, a word." They stepped aside. Their voices dropped, but their body language spoke volumes. Holloway defensive at first, then confused, then almost concerned. The commander showed him something on a tablet. Holloway's jaw tightened. His posture changed. When they returned, Holloway's eyes on Kira weren't disgusted anymore. They were calculating. The training resumed, but Kira felt the difference, the weight of unseen eyes, the hum of curiosity threading through the air. During the next break, Lucia glanced at her. "What was that about?" she whispered. Kira didn't answer. She didn't have to, because deep down she already knew. The commander had recognized something, not her face, but the way she moved. And that terrified her more than the ridicule ever had. Evening came. The sky burned gold and red over the Pacific. When Kira was called to the company office, she already knew the routine. Another reprimand, another evaluation, another threat of discharge. But when she stepped inside, Lieutenant Marcus Webb was waiting behind the desk. Not angry, just curious. "At ease," he said, shuffling through a folder. "Your academic performance is outstanding. Cognitive and technical scores top 5%. But your physical evaluations," he paused, choosing the word carefully, "inconsistent." "Yes, sir." "The commander requested your complete record this afternoon." Webb leaned back, watching her closely. "He said your movement patterns reminded him of someone he served with years ago, a particular kind of soldier, a sniper, to be precise." Kira said nothing. Silence stretched between them, thick, fragile. Webb sighed. "Look, I don't know what's going on here. Frankly, it's above my pay grade. But I'll tell you this, people are starting to notice you, and not for the reasons you want. The hazing, the isolation, it's getting worse. You file a complaint, I can act. You don't, my hands are tied." "I can handle it, sir." He studied her for a moment longer, then closed the file. "Can you? Because it looks to me like you're drowning." She didn't answer. "Dismissed," he said quietly. Outside, the air had cooled. The ocean breeze carried salt and silence. Kira walked alone along the dim barracks path, the sun bleeding out behind the hills. She felt calm, too calm. He recognized the training, she thought. The stance, the positioning, the control. The ghost had warned her this might happen. You can fake failure, he'd said, but not instinct. It leaks through when you breathe. She looked up at the stars. If Nathanson was the same officer the ghost once mentioned, the one from Fallujah, then the clock was running out faster than she'd planned. The next morning came with bad news disguised as routine. 2 weeks until final qualifications, Holloway announced. These will determine assignments, specializations, and who gets recycled or discharged. Marksmanship, land nav, tactics, combat, all of it. Standards are non-negotiable. He paced the formation, gravel crunching under his boots. His eyes found Kira. I think we all know who's most at risk. Cross smirked. Martinez chuckled. The rest stood uncomfortably still, each silently grateful it wasn't them. Kira didn't move. Later that morning, the remedial group assembled on the far edge of the PT field. 5 recruits Holloway had already given up on. Chief Warrant Officer Kowalski walked up with his range bag and a kind of tired patience only career Marines carried. All right, he said. We've got 2 weeks to get you ready. No shortcuts, just fundamentals done right, over and over. That's how you stop being liabilities. His gaze swept across them, lingered on Kira a heartbeat longer. They started on the range. One by one, Kowalski corrected grip, stance, breathing. He was firm but fair, a craftsman teaching technique, not a drill sergeant punishing mistakes. When he reached her, he knelt beside her firing position, voice calm. Your grip's too loose, he said loudly enough for the others to hear. Then quieter, a whisper, but not as loose as you pretend. Their eyes met briefly. He adjusted her hand placement. There, now show me what you can do. Kira exhaled slowly and fired 5 rounds. The shots clustered near center mass, not perfect, but close enough to look like progress, not revelation. The improvement drew attention. Holloway would call it coaching results, but Kowalski knew better. Better, he said, keep that breathing, you might just qualify after all. Days blurred together, dawn PT, range work, tactical drills, little sleep. The air grew thicker with nerves as qualification week approached. Cross and Martinez strutted like stars. Lucia practiced quietly, her movements careful, focused. Kira stayed invisible, improving just enough to stay unnoticed. But that balance between truth and disguise was becoming harder to hold. The turning point came during a building clearing exercise. Old maintenance structure, narrow corridors, pop-up targets. Kira moved through it like she always did, hesitant, imperfect, slow. Until in the second room, something slipped. A corner, a shadow, a memory. Her body moved before her mind could stop it. She pied the corner perfectly, weapon tracking smooth, footwork silent, muzzle steady. Then she realized what she'd done, froze, stumbled deliberately to cover the mistake. Kowalski, watching from the doorway, caught it. His face didn't move, but his eyes did. When she emerged, he marked her score and said quietly, "Nice work. Almost too nice. Be careful, Ashford. You move like someone who's done this for real." Their eyes met for a moment, and that was enough. He knew. But instead of exposing her, he was protecting her. Why? She didn't know. That night, as the barracks buzzed with post-training chatter, Lucia Reyes sat beside her on the bench, cleaning her rifle. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why are you really here?" Kira kept cleaning, eyes down. "Same reason as everyone else, to serve." "No," Lucia said softly. "I've been watching you. Everyone thinks you're incompetent, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes, just for a second, you move like someone who knows exactly what they're doing." Kira didn't respond. "I grew up around soldiers," Lucia continued. "My brothers used to train in our backyard. I know what struggling looks like, and I know what hiding looks like. You're hiding." The cleaning rod paused mid-stroke. "Maybe I just don't want more attention than I already have," Kira said evenly. Being the worst has advantages. People leave you alone. Lucia shook her head. That's not being left alone, that's being erased. Kira looked up finally, their eyes locking. What do you want me to say? That I'm secretly some kind of special operator undercover, because I'm not. Lucia smiled faintly. I don't need you to say it. I just think there's more to your story, and whatever it is, I hope someday you tell it. She stood, shouldering her weapon. For what it's worth, I hope you make it through qualifications. I think you might surprise people. Kira watched her go. Surprise people. The words lingered long after lights out. She lay awake again, the sound of the ocean faint through the vents, her mind replaying the commander's face, the ghost's lessons, and the quiet, patient truth inside her. The moment is coming, wait for it. And when it came, none of them would be ready. Why did she pull the trigger when she wasn't supposed to? It was supposed to be a routine drill, one of those long, sunburnt mornings on the range when the air shimmered and tempers burned hotter than the barrels. The recruits lined up shoulder to shoulder, rifles clean, nerves fraying. Final qualification week. Every mistake counted now. Cross stretched his neck like a prize fighter. Martinez slapped his own helmet for luck. Lucia whispered a prayer. Kira just breathed. She'd been up before dawn, sitting outside the barracks, eyes closed, feeling the early fog brush her face. Every inhale steady, every exhale calm. That ritual had kept her sane through years of silence, through all the isolation, through the cruel jokes and forced patience. Now it was all coming to a head. Holloway strode down the line, clipboard in hand, voice booming. This is it. 100 points possible. Marksmanship standards are simple. Center mass or you don't pass. I expect at least 75 from each of you. Cross, you're first. Cross saluted with exaggerated pride, took his position and began firing. His form was textbook, posture tight, breathing perfect, trigger squeeze smooth. When the dust cleared, the paper target downrange looked like it had been attacked by precision itself. Expert 97, Holloway said, scribbling on his board. Cross turned, flashing a grin at Kira. Try not to embarrass the platoon again, sweetheart. Kira didn't respond. Her turn came last. The air shifted. Even the wind seemed to die as she stepped forward, rifle cradled like it was part of her. The weight was familiar, too familiar. Kowalski stood behind her, clipboard ready, watching in silence. Commander Nathanson was there too, quiet, distant, expression unreadable. She knelt, checked her sight picture, adjusted her shoulder weld. For a moment her mind drifted. Not here. Not California. But back to the mountains, the thin air, the smell of cold iron, the voice of the ghost. You'll know the difference between noise and signal, Kira. Out here, silence isn't empty, it's information. She blinked. The target came into sharp focus. The range went silent. Shooter ready? Kowalski asked. She nodded once. Fire. Her finger squeezed, slow, steady breath released, shot fired. The sound cracked like thunder. The bullet tore through the air and hit dead center. Lucky start, someone muttered behind her. She fired again. Center. Again. Center. The murmurs stopped. By the 10th round, Holloway lowered his clipboard. Cross's smirk vanished. The recruits exchanged glances, disbelief spreading like a shockwave. Every shot perfect, no hesitation, no correction, just instinct. Kowalski didn't move. He just watched, the ghost of a knowing smile hiding behind professionalism. After her last shot, Kira lowered the rifle. Silence. Then Holloway stepped forward, voice unusually quiet. 99 out of 100. Cross scoffed. No way she cheated or... Quiet, Nathanson said sharply. It wasn't loud, but it cut like steel. He stepped closer, crouched beside her firing position. Marine, where did you learn that grip? Sir. That's not standard core training, he said, eyes narrowing. That's long-range stabilization sniper doctrine but refined. Who taught you that? Kiera's pulse thudded once, hard. She could feel every heartbeat echo in her throat. No one, sir, just practiced. He didn't believe it, but he didn't press. Pack up, Holloway ordered after a long pause. That's all for today. As the recruits dispersed, Cross glared at her. You think this changes anything? One lucky day doesn't make you one of us. She met his gaze, calm, steady. I'm not trying to be one of you. He frowned. Then what the hell are you trying to be? She should have said nothing, but something in her voice slipped, just a hint of truth. Prepared. That night the base buzzed with whispers. The girl who couldn't climb a rope had just outshot every recruit, even Cross. Lucia caught up with her at the mess hall. You finally stopped pretending, she said softly. Kiera froze mid-step. What? Come on, Lucia whispered. Everyone saw it. That wasn't luck. That was control. You've been hiding. Kiera sat across from her, tray untouched. If I told you why, you wouldn't believe me. Lucia leaned in. Try me. Kiera's eyes drifted, not on the room, not even on Lucia, but somewhere far away. There was a man once, she said. He wasn't a teacher or a father figure. He was something else. A ghost, maybe. He trained me to shoot, but not for glory. He said someday I'd have to do it for the right reason. And when that day came, it wouldn't feel like victory. Lucia listened in silence. What happened to him? Kiera hesitated. He disappeared, like he never existed, but I can still hear him. Every time I line up a shot, I hear him. Lucia's voice softened. So why join the Corps? Kiera smiled faintly. Because I needed to disappear too. Lucia didn't ask more. Some truths were heavy enough without words. 2 days later, everything changed. A special evaluation exercise was scheduled, a live-fire scenario simulating a base infiltration. Recruits would pair in teams, clear sections, and engage pop-up hostile targets. It was meant to test coordination, not perfection. But when real chaos appeared on a training ground, it rarely stayed pretend. They were halfway through the exercise when a distant explosion rattled the horizon. At first, everyone thought it was part of the drill until the base alarm screamed. Red lights flashed, radios crackled. Holloway's voice shouted over the intercom. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. All recruits take cover. The training field dissolved into panic, dust, shouting, confusion. Kiera ducked behind a barrier, rifle up. Martinez shouted from across the range. What the hell going on? Then gunfire, real gunfire, not blanks, not simulated. Lucia's scream cut through the chaos. Kiera didn't think. She moved, fast, too fast for someone who'd ever been a failure. She sprinted through the smoke, boots kicking up dust, heart pounding. Lucia was pinned behind a low wall, clutching her leg, eyes wide with terror. Stay down, Kiera said, voice calm, steady. She peeked over the wall. Across the open field, 3 armed men, not Marines, were advancing. Base intruders, wearing stolen fatigues. Holloway was nowhere in sight. The recruits were scattered, terrified. Lucia's voice trembled. Kiera, there. I see them. Kiera took a breath. The world narrowed, sound dulled, time slowed. Her body remembered. One target at 200 meters closing left, adjust wind, exhale, fire. The first shot dropped the man instantly. Lucia gasped, you. Quiet. Second target ducked behind cover. Kiera shifted positions, controlled, deliberate. Another exhale, another shot. Down. The third ran, fast, zigzagging toward the vehicle line. Kiera tracked him, breath steady, hands motionless. Third shot. Clean, silent, perfect. The field fell quiet again, except for the wail of distant alarms. Lucia stared at her. Kiera, who are you? Kiera didn't answer. She just reloaded calmly, scanning the horizon. Base security vehicles arrived minutes later. Sirens, shouts, confusion. Holloway and Nathanson appeared through the smoke, eyes scanning the chaos. Holloway looked from the bodies to Kira, then to Lucia, then back to Kira. "You shot them?" "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "With what authorization?" "They were shooting at us." Nathanson's gaze hardened. "Show me your weapon." She handed it over, muzzle down, safety on. He checked it, then looked at the 3 spent casings on the ground. "3 rounds fired," he said quietly. "3 kills." Holloway exhaled. "Christ almighty." Kira stood silent, dust swirling around her boots. Nathanson studied her a long moment, then said softly, "That's not luck." She said nothing. His voice dropped, almost a whisper. "Where did you learn that?" Kira's throat tightened. She wanted to lie to keep the ghost safe, to keep her secret buried under the act. But something about Nathanson's tone, the calm authority, the quiet recognition broke through. "You already know," she said finally. He nodded once. "The ghost." The words hung in the air like a shot that never stopped echoing. Holloway looked between them. "Sir, what the hell is she talking about?" Nathanson didn't answer, he just stared at Kira. "Get her cleared, medical debriefing, everything. Then bring her to my office." By sunset, the base had calmed. The threat was contained, a rogue infiltration drill gone wrong, they said. But everyone knew it was more than that. The news wouldn't reach the public. It never did. In the commander's office, Nathanson stood by the window, arms crossed, waiting. Kira entered silently. Her uniform still smelled of gunpowder. He turned. "So it's true." She said nothing. "I served with him," Nathanson said. "The Ghost, back when he still had a name. We lost contact after the war in Helmand. People said he vanished into the mountains, training his replacement. I thought it was a myth." "It was. And that replacement was you." Kira looked down. "He said the world didn't need another legend. It needed someone invisible, someone who could act when no one else could." Nathanson stepped closer, eyes hard but not unkind. "You hid it well, too well, but you just exposed yourself in the most public way possible. You saved lives, but you broke cover." Kira met his eyes. "Then what happens now?" He exhaled. "That depends. You can keep pretending you're just another recruit, or you can become what you were trained to be." "And what's that?" He smiled faintly. "A ghost the world can't see but will never forget." That night Kira stood outside the barracks again, looking out at the horizon where the ocean swallowed the light. Lucia joined her quietly, leaning on crutches, leg bandaged. "You saved my life," Lucia said softly. Kira shook her head. "You'd have done the same." Lucia smiled. "No, not like that, not with 3 bullets and no hesitation." They stood in silence for a long while. Finally Lucia said, "So what now?" Kira looked at the stars, faint, distant, unblinking. "Now I wait, because saving a life once doesn't erase what you're capable of. It just proves what you'll do when the time comes again." The wind carried her words away, soft as smoke. Why did the quiet room feel louder than the gunfire she'd just survived? The next morning, Kira sat alone inside a steel interrogation room. Walls gray, table cold, the fluorescent light above humming with the same sterile rhythm as her heartbeat. There were no mirrors, no windows, just waiting. Outside, the base was calm again, but she could still feel the echo of yesterday's chaos clinging to her skin. The dust, the smell of burnt powder, the weight of 3 perfect shots that had turned every eye toward her. The door opened. Commander Nathanson entered. He carried no file, no folder, no clipboard, just that calm stare that made everyone else shrink. He didn't sit immediately. He circled once, then stopped across from her. "You slept?" he asked. Kira shook her head. "Didn't think so." Silence stretched between them. He finally sat down. The official story is that 3 infiltrators breached a training perimeter. You neutralized them with precision before they reached the inner compound. You saved at least a dozen recruits. That's what I'll write in the report. Kira nodded, and the unofficial story. Nathanson leaned forward slightly. The unofficial story is that someone at this base has been pretending to fail while carrying skills that don't exist in any official Marine training manual. The kind of skills that only come from classified mentorship. Her eyes stayed steady. I didn't ask to be mentored, I was chosen. I know, he said quietly. That's why you're still sitting here and not in a holding cell. She blinked once, no surprise, no fear, just quiet calculation. He continued. The ghost trained you to shoot, to vanish, to act when others freeze. But what he didn't teach you is the cost of staying invisible forever. Eventually, you get noticed. Even shadows cast light if they move enough. I never wanted to be noticed, she said. I wanted to serve. He said I'd know when to step out of the dark. And he was right, Nathanson said, because that moment just came. He slid a small folder across the table. It wasn't labeled, just a seal embossed on the corner. She recognized it instantly. Task Force Sentinel. She'd heard of it, rumors mostly. Off-book operations, small teams, deniable missions. The kind of units the world pretended didn't exist until something needed fixing quietly. What is this? A reassignment, Nathanson said. Classified at Tier 1 clearance. They've been looking for someone with your profile. Kira stared at the folder. So I'm being rewarded for breaking cover. You're being redirected, he said. You've proven what you are. The Corps doesn't waste weapons that work. I'm not a weapon. No, he said softly, but you've been used like one your entire life. It's time you decide who pulls the trigger next. The words hung in the air, heavy, simple, true. He stood, leaving the folder in front of her. You have 24 hours. Read it. Decide. You walk away, I'll bury the incident and you can live as Private Ashford until your term ends. You accept and you won't just be a Marine anymore. What will I be? He looked at her, not like a superior, but like someone who'd seen too much of the same war inside himself. Free, he said quietly, but freedom's heavier than any rifle you've ever carried. Then he left. Kira sat alone again, the room suddenly colder. She opened the folder. Inside were only 2 pages. One was a standard transfer form, the other was a photo. Aerial view, burnt desert, satellite timestamp, coordinates she recognized. Afghanistan, the place she'd last seen the ghost. Her chest tightened, a memory slicing through the years. The mountain ridge, the smell of stone and snow, the crack of distant rifles. And then the silence. He'd gone to intercept a rogue extraction team, people he once trusted who had turned mercenary. She'd waited for him in the ravine below for hours, days even. He never came back. Only smoke rose where he'd been. The world assumed he'd died. She'd known better. You don't bury a ghost, you just stop looking for him. And now his past was calling her back. Outside, the day was bright and cruelly normal. Recruits jogged, instructors shouted, radios hummed. No one looked at her anymore, not with laughter or mockery, but with caution, respect tinged with fear. Lucia found her sitting on a bench near the range, staring at the folder. They're moving you. Kira nodded. Special assignment. She didn't answer. Lucia sat beside her. You're leaving, aren't you? Kira looked at the horizon, the faint shimmer of heat over the airfield. Maybe. Lucia's voice softened. You saved my life. I don't know what you owe this place, but maybe you've already given enough. Kira smiled faintly. It's not about owing, it's about finishing what was started. Lucia hesitated. That man, the ghost, he trained you for this. Kira nodded slowly. He trained me to listen to silence, to find calm where others panic. He said someday the silence would call back. Maybe this is it. Lucia placed a hand on her shoulder. Then promise me one thing. What? That when it's over, you'll come back. Not the soldier version. You, the one who still believes in people. Kira didn't answer right away. The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of salt and fuel from the ocean. I'll try, she whispered finally. That night the base slept. The ocean whispered through the wire fence like a secret. Kira sat on her bunk, the folder open on her knees. Every detail burned into her mind: the coordinates, the target, the mission brief. Operation Solstice. An old intelligence outpost, thought abandoned, had gone dark. The few signals that leaked out suggested someone was still operating there. Someone using old ghost frequencies. Someone who knew how to stay unseen. It couldn't be. But if it was, she had to know. At 200 hours, she signed the form. By sunrise, she was gone. The transport plane roared through the pre-dawn mist, heading east. She sat in silence, the world vibrating around her. Her rifle rested across her knees, disassembled and clean. A sergeant she didn't know sat across from her, chewing gum, eyes scanning her gear. You the new one? Yes. Don't talk much, do you? She looked up, talking overrated. He smirked. That's what they said about him too. Her stomach turned. Who? The ghost, he said casually. The man who trained half of Sentinel's original unit before he vanished. Some say he's dead. Others say he's out there waiting. She didn't respond. He leaned back. You remind me of the stories. Cold eyes, calm hands. Guess that's why the commander pulled you in. The engines roared louder, drowning conversation. She stared out the window, clouds rolling like mountains below. If he was alive, if the ghost truly had resurfaced, then everything she'd built to stay hidden was gone. But some part of her, the quiet, dangerous part, hoped it was true. Because maybe this time she'd get answers. They landed on a forward airstrip at dawn, a stretch of dust and wind on the edge of nowhere. The new unit waited there, 4 operatives, faces half covered by tactical scarves. None wore name tags. The team leader stepped forward, eyes sharp and unreadable. You're Ashford. Yes. He handed her a sidearm. Welcome to Sentinel. No ceremony, no handshake, just orders. Gear up, we move in 20. She checked her rifle, snapped the pieces together in seconds. The motions fluid, practiced, automatic. The team leader noticed. You've done this before. Once or twice. He didn't smile. Keep that energy, you'll need it. They loaded into the convoy, engines roaring through the barren silence. Dust swirled behind them like ghosts rising from the earth. No one spoke. Every mile closer to those coordinates, her heartbeat slowed, controlled, measured. Until the first static cracked over the comms. SSS, repeat fallback. The driver frowned. Interference. Kira leaned closer to the radio. What frequency is that? 42.9. Her stomach dropped. That was his frequency, the one the ghost had used for field drills. The same one she'd memorized years ago. She stared out into the desert, endless dunes stretching beneath a white-hot sun. Somewhere out there, someone was calling. Not for help. For her. That night, as they camped under the open stars, Kira lay awake, rifle beside her, mind replaying every word the ghost ever said. One day the quiet will end, Kira. When it does, you'll hear a voice you thought you lost. Don't run from it, follow it. Now, under the desert sky, she finally understood. The silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. And whatever waited beyond those dunes would decide who she truly was, the student who learned to hide, or the soldier who finally stepped into the light. Why did the sand feel heavier than armor? They moved before dawn, 5 silhouettes crossing the desert under a bleeding orange sky. The wind was low, the light dim, and the silence thick enough to drown thought. The Sentinel convoy had stopped 5 clicks short of the target coordinates. The rest of the way had to be on foot. No engines, no light, no noise. Kira checked her scope, thermal imaging flickering faintly on the lens. The outpost lay half buried in the sand ahead, a skeleton of metal and dust. Old U.S. comms tower, rusted by years, half collapsed. To anyone else, it was dead. But to her, something felt alive out there. The team leader, call sign Falcon, raised a hand signal. The squad halted. "Ashford," he said quietly through the mic, "you're our point. You see something, you say it before you shoot it." "Yes, sir." She moved ahead, silent, precise, ghost-like. Each step felt like memory replaying itself. The crunch of grit, the taste of metal in her mouth, the rhythm of breathing she'd learned years ago from the man whose presence still haunted her heartbeat. "Don't rush the silence, let it speak to you." The ghost's voice, as real as if he were right behind her. She froze. Thermal flickered again, faint heat signatures near the tower base. Not enough to be a team. 2, maybe 3 bodies, stationary. "Movement," she whispered into comms. "Visual?" Falcon asked. "Not yet. Could be old equipment picking up residual heat." "Or survivors," another voice, call sign Rook, muttered. "Or bait," Falcon added, "keep moving." They fanned out, silent, fluid, lethal. Kira crouched near a shattered satellite dish, rifle raised. Through her scope she saw it, a hand, human still. Then another body beside it, half covered by sand, the uniform faded but American. "Old security detail," Rook said softly. "Been here a while." Kira knelt beside one body, brushing the sand from the shoulder patch. The name was almost erased, but she could make out the letters. "G something," she whispered. Then she stopped. A small insignia caught her eye, barely visible. An emblem she knew by touch alone, a black falcon stamped over a ring of white stars. It was the ghost's personal insignia, a mark no official record ever listed. Her throat tightened. "Falcon," she said, "you might want to see this." He walked over, leaned down. "What am I looking at?" She pointed. He frowned. "That's not standard issue." It was his. "Whose?" She hesitated. "The ghost." Rook laughed quietly through the mic. "Come on, Ashford, the ghost's a myth." "Then why's his mark here?" Silence. Even Falcon didn't answer. They breached the outpost. The door groaned open, air stale and heavy with dust. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply, the kind of cold that only lives underground. Their flashlights swept through corridors lined with rusted cables, cracked monitors, and faded warning signs. No life, no movement, just echoes. Then faint static crackled through their comms. Rook frowned. "You guys hear that?" "Comms interference," Falcon said. "Keep them tight." Kira froze mid-step. The static wasn't random, it pulsed in rhythm. 4 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. "Morse." Her heart stopped. It was one of his old codes. She translated automatically. "STAYLOW." Her hands trembled slightly. "Commander," she whispered, "we're not alone." Rook swept his rifle across the hallway. "Movement." "No, but someone's warning us." "From where?" Before she could answer, the sound came, faint footsteps from below, not military, untrained, light. Falcon gestured. "Basement, stack up." They descended the stairwell in silence. Dust swirled under their boots. The air thickened. Then light. A single flickering bulb illuminated a small control room. Old monitors blinked with ghostly images, empty corridors, static-filled camera feeds. And in the corner someone sat. A man. Alive. Hands bound, blindfolded, face bruised and burned by the desert. His body trembled with exhaustion. Falcon approached slowly. "Identify yourself." No answer. Kira's heart pounded. She stepped closer, her shadow falling across his face. When he turned his head slightly, something in her chest broke. The jawline, the scar across his temple, the faint gray streak in his beard. She couldn't breathe. It can't be. Falcon barked again, name and unit. The man's lips cracked as he whispered, no unit, no rank, just a name once. Falcon raised his weapon. You better start talking, old man. Kira's voice barely escaped her. Stand down, sir. Excuse me. I know him. Falcon looked at her, disbelief flickering behind his visor. That's not possible. But it was. Because she was looking at the ghost. They moved him upstairs. Rook secured the perimeter while Falcon debriefed command over encrypted channel. The ghost, frail, sun-baked but unmistakably alive, sat against the wall, drinking from a canteen. Kira knelt beside him. For a moment she didn't know what to say. Words felt small. You're supposed to be dead, she whispered. He smiled faintly, voice rough with sand and years. I was for a while. Why didn't you tell me? He looked up, eyes the same cold blue that had once taught her how to breathe between heartbeats. You weren't ready. You left me, she said quietly. You left me there to think you were gone. And if I hadn't, he said, you'd have followed me and you'd be dead now too. She wanted to hate him, but all she felt was relief, painful, overwhelming relief. You trained me to wait, she said, to stay hidden until the moment came. Well, it came, and I broke cover. I saw. His tone carried no judgment, just truth. They said you went rogue, she said. He chuckled softly. They said a lot of things doesn't make them real. Then what happened? He leaned closer. The same thing that always happens. The mission changed. The people didn't, so I disappeared until they came looking again. Who? His expression hardened. Not ours, not theirs, something in between. Falcon approached. He's coming with us, he said. Command wants him alive for debrief. The ghost smirked. Command, still pretending they know what's going on. Falcon frowned. You got something to say, old man. Yeah, he said, his voice suddenly sharp. If you think the people giving you orders are still the good guys, you're already lost. Falcon stiffened. We'll see about that. He gestured to Rook. Secure him, we move in 5. As they prepped for extraction, Kira noticed something flickering on one of the monitors, a movement outside the perimeter. 2 trucks, headlights off, approaching fast. Her instincts screamed, we've got company. Falcon swung his rifle up. Positions, defensive line, move. They spread out 4 operatives, 1 prisoner, surrounded by darkness. The roar of engines grew louder. Dust clouds, tires crunching. Rook cursed, who the hell? Gunfire erupted. Automatic, heavy caliber. Kira dropped behind cover, returning fire. The first wave hit hard, precise, coordinated. Whoever they weren't amateurs. Falcon shouted orders over the comms. Suppress and retreat to the east ridge. Go. Kira fired 3 rounds, clean hits, then ducked behind a broken wall. Bullets cracked past her ears, chipping stone. She turned to the ghost. Stay low. He smiled grimly. Didn't you read the message? She froze. The Morse code. Stay low. He'd sent it. He'd known they were coming. Rook's voice broke through comms. Falcon, they're flanking. Falcon swore. We're pulling out. Ashford, cover the exit. Kira nodded, sliding into position. Her rifle felt lighter than air, her pulse steady. 3 hostiles approached from the west. She exhaled. 3 shots. 3 bodies fell. Falcon turned. Ashford, move. She sprinted toward the ridge, the ghost limping beside her. Bullets tore through the sand at their heels. At the ridge, they dove behind cover. The trucks burned in the distance, dark silhouettes against the flames. Then silence. Falcon panted, checking his rifle. Everyone sound off. Rook here hit but stable. Ghost secure, Kira said. Falcon looked at her, eyes unreadable. You just disobeyed 2 direct orders to cover him instead of retreating. She met his gaze. If I hadn't, he'd be dead. Falcon exhaled, shaking his head. You're out of line. Maybe, she said quietly, but I'm still alive, and so is he. He didn't respond. But the ghost did. She made the right call, he said calmly. You want to stay alive out here, start listening to her. Hours later, the desert fell quiet again. The flames died. The stars returned. The ghost sat by the truck wreckage, hands bound again but eyes alive with something fierce. You think this was random, he said softly. Kira shook her head. No. They knew we'd come, he said, and they knew my frequency, which means someone inside Sentinel sold us out. Kira's jaw tightened. Why? He looked at her, a flicker of pain crossing his weathered face. Because truth's expensive, Kira, and the people in charge stopped paying for it a long time ago. She didn't answer. She just looked out over the desert, endless, empty, waiting, and realized something terrifying. The mission hadn't just found her, it was built for her. And the next move would decide not only who she trusted, but who she became. Why did every truth she learned feel like another betrayal? The desert had stopped moving hours ago. No wind, no sound, just the heavy stillness that comes after survival. Kira sat against the burned-out husk of a truck, rifle across her knees, eyes fixed on the horizon. The ghost rested a few feet away, wrists bound, face lit by the fatting glow of embers. Falcon and Rook whispered over a map spread across a crate, arguing in tones they thought she couldn't hear. They'll come looking for us, Rook muttered. We've got to radio command. And tell them what? Falcon shot back. That our mission went sideways because our target's a dead man with more answers than they want us to have. Rook scowled. You think command planned this? Falcon didn't answer. He just stared at the ghost. Kira finally spoke, voice steady. They did, or at least someone wanted him found. Rook turned. You got proof of that, Marine. 3 vehicles, same model, same markings, coordinated assault. That's not scavengers, that's precision. The ghost smiled faintly. She's right, and if you're smart, you'll start questioning why your own team's coordinates were compromised before you left base. Falcon's jaw clenched. You saying we've got a mole? The ghost's tone was calm, almost weary. I'm saying the line between ally and asset gets blurry when people start treating soldiers like tools. Rook threw up his hands. Great, a conspiracy lecture from a fossil. But Kira wasn't listening to Rook. Her eyes stayed on the ghost, the lines in his face, the fatigue hiding behind those sharp blue eyes. He wasn't lecturing, he was warning. They moved out before sunrise. The air bit cold, slicing through gear and skin alike. The plan: reach the extraction point 10 kilometers east, radio for pickup, regroup. Halfway there, the ghost stumbled. His knees buckled. Kira caught him before he fell. Easy, she said quietly. I'm fine, he muttered, voice rasping. Falcon called back over his shoulder. He slows us down, we leave him. No, Kira said flatly. Falcon turned. You forget your place, Ashford. She met his glare, unblinking. You forget your humanity, sir. Rook's eyes darted between them. Enough, both of you. They pressed on, tension a live wire between every step. By the time they reached the ridgeline overlooking the extraction valley, the sun was rising. Below, where there should have been empty sand, a small facility stood, modern, intact, humming with power. Was that here before? Rook whispered. No, Falcon said. The ghost stared down at it, his expression hollow. That's where the signal came from. What signal? The one I sent years ago, before I went dark. Kira frowned. You said you disappeared. I did, he said, but not before I found something I wasn't supposed to. They descended the slope in silence. The facility door wasn't locked, just slightly ajar, as if waiting. The interior glowed with white-blue light, too clean for the middle of nowhere. Rows of glass chambers lined the walls, filled with suspended gel and pale light. Inside each, human silhouettes. Kira's breath caught. What is this? Falcon moved closer to one chamber, scanning the interface. Vitals are stable, stasis systems active. Soldiers, Rook said softly. They're soldiers. The ghost nodded grimly. Test subjects, the kind they make disappear when missions need deniability. Deniability for what? He looked at Kira. For trying to make soldiers who don't break. No fear, no hesitation, no conscience. Falcon scoffed. That's impossible. Is it? The ghost said quietly. You're standing in the proof. Kira stepped closer to one of the chambers. The face inside looked peaceful, like sleep. The name tag on the chest plate read REYES-L. Her stomach dropped. Lucia. Falcon froze. The recruit from Pendleton. Kira's hands trembled. She was wounded, not missing. They told me she was recovering. The ghost sighed. They lied. The program takes promising candidates after trauma reports. Easier to rewrite loyalty when they're broken. Falcon's face hardened. You knew this. I knew pieces, the ghost said. That's why I ran. Kira's pulse roared in her ears. You ran because you refused to let them use you. I ran because I refused to let them use you. Silence. Falcon turned to her. He's manipulating you, Ashford. This is above our clearance. We need to call it in. Call who? She snapped. The same people doing this. Rook raised his rifle. We don't know that. The ghost's voice was calm but cutting. You know exactly that. Falcon glared at Kira. You shoot him now, we walk away clean. She didn't lower her weapon. I'm not executing him. Then you're choosing sides, Falcon said. I'm choosing truth. He stepped closer, eyes burning. And what's that worth? You think exposing this will fix it? You'll just vanish like he did. Maybe, she said softly, but I'll vanish for the right reason. The tension snapped when alarms began to wail. Red lights flooded the corridors, doors sealed. The hum of machines grew louder, alive. Extraction team inbound, Rook shouted. They found us. The ghost grabbed Kira's arm. Listen to me. You can't let them take this place intact. You want me to destroy it. I want you to finish what I couldn't. Falcon barked orders. Ashford, cover east. Rook, get the ghost secured. She ignored him, moving to the control console. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Every security file, every data log, she started uploading to her helmet cam's local storage. Rook yelled, What are you doing? Insurance. Gunfire echoed down the corridor, heavy boots approaching fast. Hostiles, Falcon shouted, 2 teams. Kira turned to the ghost. Tell me how to shut it down. Main coolant line, he said. North wall, break the regulator. She sprinted toward it, bullets sparking off metal behind her. The ghost covered her with a pistol he'd somehow slipped from Rook's belt, firing short, perfect bursts. She reached the regulator, yanked open the panel, and ripped the coolant line free. Liquid hissed into the air, white vapor blooming like ghostly smoke. The lights flickered. The chambers began to frost. Systems failing, Rook shouted. Falcon cursed. We're leaving now. But Kira stayed. Inside one of the chambers, Lucia's face turned pale under the freezing light. Kira pressed her hand against the glass. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'll make it mean something. The chamber cracked. Frost spread like veins. Then everything exploded into chaos. Alarms, shouts, gunfire, glass shattering. The ghost pulled her down behind cover. Go. Not without you. He smiled, tired and proud. You already surpassed me, Kira. That's how this was supposed to end. Then he shoved her toward the exit, just as a blast wave tore through the corridor. The world went white. When she woke, it was night again. The desert stretched endless around her, the facility burning behind like a fallen star. The air smelled of smoke and memory. Her ears rang, her hands trembled. No sign of Falcon, no sign of Rook, no sign of the ghost. She stood slowly, every bone aching. For a moment she thought she heard his voice again, not through comms, not in her head, but in the wind itself. You did what mattered. Now disappear before they make you one of them. She turned toward the darkness and walked. Each step sank into sand that felt like the weight of every secret she now carried. The world would call her deserter, traitor, myth, just like him. But she didn't care. Because somewhere in that burning ruin, her mentor's words finally made sense. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And now it was her turn to act. Why did silence feel more dangerous than gunfire? The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, a sea of pale gold beneath a washed-out sky. Wind brushed the dunes like whispers, carrying heat, grit, and memories that refused to die. Kira moved through it like a shadow, no light, no sound, no trail. The ghost had trained her for this. Vanish into terrain until you became part of it. But even he hadn't prepared her for what it felt like to be hunted by her own. By now, Sentinel would have reported her missing. Falcon would call it desertion. Command would spin it as insubordination. And somewhere, a nameless official would sign a piece of paper that reclassified her from operative to liability. The desert didn't care. But it watched. And it whispered, "You're not done yet." By the second night, the cold set in. Kira huddled inside the wreckage of an old supply truck half buried in sand, her rifle laid across her knees, her body wrapped in a thermal blanket she'd scavenged from her pack. Sleep came in fragments, flashes of noise and heat. The ghost's voice. Lucia's frozen face. The hum of machines that stole people's humanity one heartbeat at a time. She woke with a start. The stars had shifted. Her instincts screamed before her eyes even focused. Movement. A faint glint in the dark scope reflection, half a mile out. She rolled silently off the seat and into the sand, crawling to a new position. Through her optic, she saw them, 3 figures, black-clad, moving low across the ridge. Sentinel trackers. They'd found her trail. Her pulse slowed, not panic but purpose. She waited until they crested the ridge, the moon catching the shine of their visors. One held a thermal scanner, another swept his rifle side to side, cautious, deliberate. She counted their steps, listened to the crunch of boots over rock. Then one heartbeat, one breath, one shot. The lead scout fell without sound. The other 2 dove for cover, shouting into comms. Kira moved fast, flanking low through the dunes. By the time they regrouped on her last known position, she was already behind them. 3 rounds, 3 perfect shots. Silence again. But this time it didn't feel like victory. It felt like inevitability. By dawn, she'd covered another 5 miles. Her canteen was nearly empty. The radio she'd salvaged from the truck crackled intermittently, distant chatter from Sentinel frequencies. Unit compromised. Ashford presumed armed and hostile. She turned the dial off. The sun climbed, burning through the haze. Her boots sank deeper into sand that shimmered like glass. She stopped only once when she saw it. A drone. High altitude. Small, fast, circling slow spirals overhead. They weren't tracking her by footprints anymore. They were tracking her by heat signature. She dropped her gear, pulled her poncho tight and buried herself halfway beneath the sand, a trick she'd learned years ago. Heat dissipated. Her breathing slowed. The drone hovered, scanned, then drifted away. She waited a full 10 minutes before moving again. When she stood, her hands trembled not from fear but exhaustion. Her reflection in the rifle's scope caught her off guard. The sand-caked face, the cracked lips, the cold eyes that no longer belonged to the recruit who'd once failed obstacle courses for show. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was what the ghost had made her, and maybe what the Corps had feared she'd become. By nightfall, she reached the edge of a canyon deep, jagged, impossible to cross on foot. An old relay station clung to the cliffside, built decades ago, still flickering faint blue with power. She entered cautiously, scanning corners, rifle raised. Inside, dust and silence. The air smelled like iron and oil. In the center of the room stood a table, and on it a transmitter, operational. She hesitated. Contact command, and they'd trace her instantly. Stay silent, and the truth about what she'd seen would die with her. Then she noticed the scratched initials carved into the transmitter's metal casing, GL. Her chest tightened. The ghost had been here. Beside the transmitter sat a small black box, no bigger than her palm. She flipped it open. Inside, a data drive and a note written on a torn ration wrapper. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it out. Don't let them bury the truth. They'll call you a traitor, let them. You know who you are now, G. Her hands shook as she slid the drive into the console. The screen blinked to life, encrypted files, dozens of them. Mission logs, experimental data, psychological profiles. Everything. Proof. And now her decision had a pulse. Hours later, the night split open again, headlights cutting through the canyon fog. Engines. Sentinel had arrived. Kira moved to the upper catwalk, rifle ready. Below, she saw Falcon step out of the lead vehicle, flanked by Rook and two others she didn't recognize. Spread out, Falcon barked. Recover whatever data you can, Ashford in the area. Rook hesitated. What about the order? Falcon's voice dropped. We kill her on sight. Kira closed her eyes for half a second, forcing calm into her breath. They were here to erase everything, her, the ghost, the truth. She could run, she could vanish again. But she remembered Lucia, the frozen face in that glass chamber, the promise she'd made. Make it mean something. She switched the transmitter to broadcast mode and hit upload. The files began transferring. Encrypted, fragmented, bouncing between global relay stations. The truth was leaving this canyon, whether she survived or not. A boot scuffed below Rook, searching. Kira whispered into the dark, sorry, old friend. Then she fired. Rook went down instantly. Falcon spun, firing back. Bullets sparked against steel. Kira ducked, returning fire, one controlled burst, another. The air filled with gunfire and echoes. ASHFORD, Falcon shouted, voice echoing through the canyon. You think you're the hero here. You think the world wants your truth. No, she called back, but they deserve it anyway. He fired again. She flanked, climbed the catwalk railing and dropped behind him silently. When he turned, her rifle was already leveled. Don't, she said quietly. Falcon froze. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty. He smirked. You can't fight the system, Kira. You are the system. You were made by it. She shook her head. No, I was made despite it. He lunged. The rifle went off. The echo rolled through the canyon like thunder. Then silence again. When it was over, Kira stood alone beneath the transmitter's fading light. The upload bar reached 100%. Transmission complete. The files were gone, scattered, unstoppable. She exhaled slowly, lowering her weapon. Her hands trembled. Her knees almost buckled. In the distance, the dawn began to break pale gold against a blood-red sky. She sank to her knees, watching the first light crawl across the canyon floor. Ghost, she whispered, it's done. The wind moved softly through the broken relay station, stirring dust and ashes. For the first time since she'd met him, she didn't hear his voice. Only her own. And somehow that felt right. She wasn't the student anymore. She was the echo. Why did the world suddenly feel too quiet for someone who just changed it? 3 days after the canyon, the desert was still burning. Smoke rose where the facility had been, curling into the pale morning sky like a secret trying to escape. Kira walked alone along a dry riverbed, boots heavy, rifle slung low. The radio on her shoulder hissed with fragments of static, pieces of the world she'd broken free. Leaked footage confirms, unknown marine operative. Classified experiments under investigation. Command refuses comment. She switched it off. She didn't need the news. She could feel it, the ripple moving outward, touching places she'd never see. She had done it, the truth was out. And now she was the ghost. The first night she found shelter in an abandoned shepherd's hut carved into the rock. The air inside was cold, the walls cracked, the silence pure. She laid her rifle down, sat by the small fire she built, and tried to remember what warmth used to feel like before every heartbeat became a calculation. Sleep came slow. Dreams of Pendleton, the laughter, the humiliation, Lucia's voice whispering you'll surprise people. Dreams of the ghost, his hand steady on hers, his voice calm in the snow. You'll know when to stop hiding. She woke to dawn light spilling through the cracks. For the first time in months, her pulse was calm. No alarms, no orders, no gunfire. Just wind. And choice. By the second evening, she reached a border town, nameless, quiet, somewhere between nowhere and nothing. The streets were dust and silence, the few locals too busy surviving to care who passed through. She bought a change of clothes from a vendor who didn't ask questions, a faded shawl, desert trousers, a cap that shadowed her face. When she caught her reflection in a shop window, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. No rank, no unit, no past. Just eyes that had seen too much, and a face that finally looked free. At the cafe on the edge of town, a small television flickered behind the counter. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Secret military program exposed. Evidence links high-ranking OFFICRS to human EXPRMNTS. The reporter's voice trembled with the weight of words not meant for daylight. Unknown source believed to be internal, footage authenticated. Kira watched in silence. The footage was grainy, the chambers, the faces, the experiments. And then, for a fraction of a second, the camera panned across a reflection in a glass panel, her reflection. No name, no confirmation, just a shadow of her face. That was enough. The world would never know her name, but they'd know what she'd done. The cafe owner turned the volume down and muttered something in another language, probably a prayer. Kira paid for her coffee and left. Outside, the wind picked up again, dry, restless, carrying sand like ash. She walked through the empty street until a child's laughter stopped her. Two kids chased a worn soccer ball across the dust. Their mother watched from a doorway, smiling faintly. For the first time since the mountains, Kira smiled too. It felt foreign, fragile, real. She sat on a bench, watching the children play, and let the noise fill the cracks inside her that silence had carved. This, not the rifle, not the mission, not the medals she'd never get. This was what she'd been fighting for. People who would never know her name, but would live a little safer because she refused to stay quiet. When night fell, she climbed a ridge above the town. The stars burned brighter here, clean, infinite. She took the ghost's dog tag from her pocket, the one she'd found among the wreckage before she fled. It was scorched and bent, but the engraving was still visible. GL serve in silence. She held it tight, whispering into the dark. I did it, you were right, it wasn't about glory. The wind stirred, faint but warm, brushing her cheek like a reply. She smiled, slipped the tag around her neck, and turned her gaze east, toward nothing and everything. Days turned into weeks. She crossed borders, changed names, learned to disappear again, but this time on her own terms. She left trails only when she wanted to be followed. Sometimes she'd hear rumors in passing. A female sniper who doesn't miss. A Marine who walks through war zones without a unit. A ghost who fights for no flag but justice itself. She never confirmed them, she just kept moving. Somewhere the world had started to change slowly, painfully, but undeniably. Commanders questioned, programs dismantled, families reunited with soldiers once lost. Lucia Reyes was one of them. Kira saw it one night on a flickering news feed in a border bar. Lucia, alive, walking on her own, speaking to the press. She didn't mention names. She didn't need to. Kira felt something inside her unclench, a small piece of peace, rare and fleeting. She raised her glass quietly toward the screen. "You made it, Lucia." Then she walked back into the night. Months later, deep in the northern mountains, she built a small cabin, nothing more than 4 walls and a roof, a place to rest the silence. Every morning she'd step outside, watch the sunrise and breathe, no ranks, no missions, no ghosts, just breath. But sometimes, when the wind came down from the peaks, it carried the faintest echo of a voice. "Patience, Kira, you made it matter." And she'd smile, because maybe ghosts never really die. They just pass on their quiet purpose to someone who can still carry it. As the seasons turned, she kept a small fire burning outside her door, not for warmth but for memory. Anyone who found her, deserters, wanderers, soldiers who'd lost their way, could sit by that fire, say nothing, and rest. And if they asked who she was, she'd only smile and say, "Just someone who learned when not to pull the trigger." Because the truth wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who refused to look away. The wind would shift, the mountains would listen, and somewhere far away, a legend would whisper her story in places where courage still had a heartbeat. She didn't need medals. She didn't need names. She had done what mattered. And in the stillness between heartbeats, she finally understood the ghost's last lesson. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.